Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 11th Annual Rubber Tramp Rendezvous. This year, we're not as normal. We are online classes this year, and thank you for being here. I'm Sue Ann Carlson, the Executive Director of Homes on Wheels Alliance, otherwise known as HOWA, H-O-W-A, our acronym. Homes on Wheels Alliance is your host for these RTRs. And today, I'm very happy to introduce you to our topic this morning, and that is mobile internet options. And our speakers are Chris Dunphy and Cherie Veillard, also known to me as Technomatia. They are truly living a mobile lifestyle for the last 15 years. They have an RV bus on the West Coast. They're in a van. And currently today, they come to us from their boat in the state of Florida. So welcome. I would really encourage you, as you listen to their presentation, they'll be making references to their website and to their YouTube channel. Those links are down below in the description. And highly encourage you to visit their YouTube channel. It is called Mobile Internet Resource Center, and they are the perfect folks to talk to us today. With that, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Sue Ann. It is awesome to be here, and thank you so much to the HOWA for putting this on. I think we presented at one of the very first RTRs many years ago.
Yeah, what year was that?
I think it was 2014, 2015 in person.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've been on the road for quite a while.
Yeah, all these years blur together, but yeah, we started off, I started off solo in a teeny tiny little teardrop clamshell way back in 2006. Met Cherie that first year on the road, and we've been through just a variety of different RVs ever since. But even since that first date, we were working and connecting via mobile internet.
Yep. So I was a software developer when I hit the road with Chris after we met online, and I could work from anywhere as long as I had an internet connection. And back then, I was able to tether to a smartphone to get online. But a lot has changed over the years, and we've got asked this question about how we got internet on the road so often that we made it our full-time jobs now since 2014, tracking these options. And I'm hoping not too much background clutter's going on. We actually have a
riverboat
going by right now. So this is a question that we get all the time, is how do you get internet on the road? And it's not an easy, straightforward answer. Number one, it changes so often by what your needs are. What does mobile internet mean to you?
Yeah, it's not like traditional, living in this fixed place where there's usually like one or two options. You got cable, you got DSL, and once you get it, it works the same every day. It's just there, and just like the lights, you turn it on and it works. With mobile internet, you are traveling, and the environment around you is changing all the time, whether how many other people are trying to pile onto the cell tower, or where you physically happen to be, what the conditions are out there. And so you have to be more versed in being able to take advantage of all the different situations you'll run into. And you have to understand your needs, because it's not just a simple unlimited, always on, use all the data you want type connection anymore.
So considering first, what is it that you need to do online? Are you just surfing the web? Are you checking forums? Are you going on Facebook and checking email, maybe researching your next destination? Well, your data needs might be fairly minimal. If you're wanting to do entertainment, like watching YouTube videos, Netflix, or if you're doing a lot of video streaming, well, those have some high bandwidth needs, but there are some options to make that easier. Or if you're like us and you're working remotely, well, mobile internet becomes not just a nice to have, it becomes a must have. And you really have to consider how reliable of a connection that you need. Like, do you have deliverables? Like, you have to be online from 9 to 5, or do you have to upload large files? Or do you have a flexible schedule where it's okay if you're offline for a couple days at a time?
Maybe even a good thing that you're offline for a couple days at a time. You digitally detox and then go online for a few days, get your work done, and then digitally detox again. But if you can't do that, you need a much more reliable setup.
So all those things can play a consideration into the ideal mobile internet setup for you. And of course, there's also your travel style.
Oh, well, yeah. Are you going to be in, kind of core urban areas or along the freeway corridors and stuff? Or are you going to be heading out into the boonies where you might not even see, an artificial light on the horizon? There's no cell towers to be found and only the weakest possible signals. That changes the nature of the game. And are you going to be going to state parks where there's no Wi-Fi if you're looking for Wi-Fi, or are you going to be going to, commercial parks which might be offering, free Wi-Fi to their customers, but maybe is it good or not? But we'll talk about that in a second.
Are you going to be doing a lot of lot docking, staying in Walmarts and truck stops and rest stops where you might have access to a public Wi-Fi network that you can tap into during your overnights? All those things will make a difference in how you set up your mobile internet settings. And there's a lot of other considerations. You really need to get a handle on how much internet you need, because like Chris says, it's not like a cable or a DSL hookup where you probably have a unlimited set of data. You're going to be dealing with data plans and sources that are going to have capped speeds and capped usage limits, and they might have caps that apply to things like mobile hotspot use or even video resolution.
And so this is a very complicated topic. It can be a very complicated topic. You can go really, really deep into so many of these different avenues and, spend a lot of money. And a lot of people throw way more money at solving this problem than they need to. But you can also keep it pretty simple and pretty affordable. You just kind of have to go in with your eyes wide open, do a little thinking and planning in advance, and know how to weigh your options.
And know that you can start off simple and build the options as you go if you're just starting out, because you'll come across different challenges in your travels, and you'll have to decide, is it worth investing in a solution for this challenge that you might only encounter once and maybe you might counter it a year later? Or are you okay with, there might just be times when I'm offline or when I need to drive into town to get a better internet connection? So this is a pretty advanced technical topic, and you can go as deep as you want. We're going to keep this presentation very high level because it is pretty short, but we have tons and tons of content that we have assembled over the years. If you want to dive deeper, a lot of it free, a lot of it offered free. We don't do advertising or sponsorships. We are all community funded, so we can be as unbiased as possible in our solutions.
And we're not trying to sell you anything.
So the first thing we're going to do here is we're going to talk about the three primary ways that RVers tend to get online. And those are going to be using public Wi-Fi sources, cellular data, and satellite. So first, we're going to start with Wi-Fi sources. And you see campgrounds all the time advertising free Wi-Fi. You might be able to get Wi-Fi at a public campground,
a lot of people,
library, or something like that.
Think, oh, hey, the McDonald's has got Wi-Fi down the street, or the Walmart's got Wi-Fi, and all I need to do is get some gear so I can reach it from wherever I'm at. And see some of this Wi-Fi gear advertised, connect a mile away, and you're like, I'm a mile from a McDonald's, I'll get free Wi-Fi from that. Sort of.
So the things to understand about the challenges of using public Wi-Fi networks. And first, let's look at the word Wi-Fi. We all so often see people say, I need Wi-Fi. How do I get Wi-Fi in my RV when I'm traveling? And Wi-Fi is a word that gets blurred in its usage. Wi-Fi is technically a wireless networking technology. It does not necessarily mean internet access. That's our cat chiming in the background to tell you all about Wi-Fi. So Wi-Fi, when people use the word Wi-Fi, I need Wi-Fi, what they're really meaning is
they want to get online.
They want to get online. But we're very clear when we're talking about when we're using Wi-Fi. We're in this section talking about using someone else's Wi-Fi network that is connected to the internet. And the challenges are, the Wi-Fi technology itself is very short range. It is maybe good for a couple hundred, maybe a few hundred feet where you're getting maximum speeds, where you're getting the speed that network is created for. Performance drops off substantially the further you get away from the access point where the Wi-Fi is being broadcast from.
Yeah, and so then people think, well, there's long-range Wi-Fi gear that you can get that will let you tap into a network from further away. And indeed, this sort of stuff exists. This is the Alpha Camp Pro kit, which is a fairly affordable long-range Wi-Fi setup. But you need long-range equipment on both ends of the connection. And well, if a restaurant is putting in Wi-Fi for their customers, they're not putting in long-range equipment. They're putting in Wi-Fi that is focused inward where their customers are. And same with the library, same with a lot of places. But RV parks, truck stops, stuff like that, they're putting in long-range Wi-Fi equipment because they're trying to cover a longer range. So if you have longer range equipment on your end of the connection, you can pick it up from a further distance. Speeds are often still not great. And the important thing with Wi-Fi, and we advise everybody to do this, is before you even invest any money in equipment and stuff, is make sure the Wi-Fi you want to connect to is worth connecting to. You know, walk up to the access point and connect with your phone or your tablet or something, and see if is the connection there good. Because all too often a campground has horrible Wi-Fi, even at the main office. Nothing you can do is going to get you better Wi-Fi back where you're at.
Because you have to keep in mind that Wi-Fi network that a McDonald's or a campground has created, they have to have an internet source. And that might be a cable connection. It might be DSL. It might be a very limited connection.
Yeah,
and that connection has to be shared with everyone who's trying to use it. Think of it kind of like if you go into an RV park to fill up your water tanks. And let's say the campground only has a single garden hose coming into the entire campground,
and water tanks,
and everyone has to share that single garden hose. And if you split that up between, let's say, 100 different people, and everyone's trying to fill their water tank at the same time, well, what's going to happen?
Drip, drip, drip.
Everyone just gets a trickle of water. Same thing happens with internet. If they only have a garden hose coming in of internet, you're only going to get a trickle of that, because you only get a small slice of that Wi-Fi connection.
Right.
So there's a lot of things about Wi-Fi that make it a challenge, but that doesn't mean it's not something you might utilize in your travels, especially if you have flexibility to drive to a public library and use those resources, or you don't mind not having your workday be at your gorgeous open boondocking spot. You are okay working in a parking lot.
Yeah, yes. It's like, you know, we did this in early days. We'd go park outside of a coffee shop and have our RV there, and like, hey, we got their Wi-Fi for a while. But then, you know, for people who need to be more connected, cellular is a lot more flexible, and it has gotten so much better over the last few years.
So we're talking about cellular. This is the same technology that is used in your cell phone to make phone calls. But we all have gotten pretty used to being able to do data things on our phones. We check our email. We maybe surf on here. We may even be watching videos right on the phone itself. These are mini computers now. They have multiple functions. I personally can't remember the last time I actually used a phone call on my phone. This is my internet. This is my computer and internet device when I'm away from my desk. But this can also has a feature called personal mobile hotspot on it. You just enable it in the settings. Your small phone becomes a Wi-Fi hotspot that you can then connect your laptops to or other devices to and get them online.
And that is actually a really great way and a wonderful way for people to start, but you'll quickly discover that the data plans have pretty significant limits on how you're sharing that connection from a phone. And also, a phone is not necessarily the best device to be always, you know, using for sharing. Its focus is being a phone, not a sharing device. So there's a whole nother category of devices called mobile hotspots. That are basically phones without the phones. They're little cellular routers that connect to the cell network, make a Wi-Fi network, and they're more intended for being left on all the time, keeping a network going. They have an advantage that a lot of no phones have, which is antenna ports, and that can be such a wonderful way to improve your connection. So cheap compared to cell boosters and stuff. So. And then there's, I guess, show.
And then the next option for cellular is
take it even more seriously.
Is a cellular embedded router. So this is basically a hotspot device, which you might know as a jetpack or MiFi. Those are branding terms, kind of like Kleenex or Puffs. So mobile hotspot device, simple little battery operated solution that can be tethered by a cable to your computer or creates its own Wi-Fi network. And it's got one purpose and one purpose only, that's to take cellular data and create that and share it with your other solutions. Now, a router, this has got a modem inside. It's kind of like a mobile hotspot, but it typically doesn't have a battery. So you do need to hook it up to a power source.
Yeah,
so
12 volt can work for a lot of these.
It usually has Ethernet ports out so that you can actually create a wired network if you don't want to do a Wi-Fi network. It does Wi-Fi as well. And very often you can also use those Ethernet ports to bring in another internet source. So if you have a Wi-Fi as WAN connection that you could Ethernet it in.
So it could connect to the
Mhm.
upstream campground network.
Mhm.
The nice advantages of a router type thing is that if you've got a lot of devices, if you're only connecting with just one laptop or something like that, that probably don't need a router. But if you've got a whole bunch of computers, you might have a printer, you might have even some people are putting their light switches and stuff on Wi-Fi. If you every time you change your upstream connection, you don't want to have to go change the settings on all of those. So you have a router like this that becomes kind of the central conductor. You connect to the router with all your stuff, and then you just tell your router what is your upstream connection, whether you're connecting Verizon, AT&T, the campground's Wi-Fi, the coffee shop next door, and that way it's just kind of a simple switch point where you're going to. It's useful. Overkill for a lot of people, but still can be very useful.
If you need multiple connections and you need to move between them, they're a great option, especially if a lot of connection things to connect to your source.
Yes.
Now, the other option that we'd like to have people consider is a tablet.
So cellular embedded tablets, and there are some really affordable cellular embedded tablets. So if you get a tablet that has a cell plan and stuff like that, you can get a cell plan for a tablet, often really, really cheap, that gives you unlimited data on the tablet itself, which is a pretty big screen for watching stuff, or you can use the outputs to go to a bigger screen, to your larger TV if you want to do a lot of streaming. You can do a lot of work. You can keyboards and stuff, treat them basically like laptops, and it becomes such a flexible and affordable way to have a good unlimited data plan.
We've been, because you can, if you have a, so we're going to talk about data plans here next, but if you have a direct postpaid plan with any of the carriers, you can typically add on a cellular embedded tablet to that plan for just $20 a month. And then you've got this unlimited, basically mini laptop computer. It's great if you have to do Zoom calls or FaceTime calls or video conferencing, because they have a camera built in and a microphone. So you can do all of your video work right on the tablet itself using that unlimited data plan and not worrying about mobile hotspot caps or any of those other things that might make a data plan unusable for
because
you.
If you were sharing that data from whatever your cell phone sources and getting your laptop online and doing the Zoom call, that would be running through your data plan like crazy. So you have unlimited data on the tablet, but very limited data when you're sharing with a lot of these plans. So that's kind of like, you got to learn all these little workarounds and ways through the system of how to get the data and use the things and do the things you want to do without getting throttled down and running out of data steam.
Right. So let's talk about data next, the data plans that you can get now. On a smartphone, you're going to find a lot of unlimited plans from the carriers. They're going to say they're unlimited. If you go into a Verizon store and an AT&T store, your rep is probably going, oh, you have unlimited data.
Yeah, go for it.
It's great. It's unlimited data for what you use on the phone itself. If you want to use that personal mobile hotspot feature, well, then you're tapping into, usually there's a cap data, and we see thresholds of 10 gigabytes up to 100 gigabytes of mobile hotspot use that you can use in a month. So you need to know how much data you need in a month to feel happy using that personal mobile hotspot feature.
Because when those plans run out, that mobile hotspot cap runs out, it hits a throttling limit where it'll go from cruising along nice and fast to basically unusable speeds. It's still technically unlimited, but it's dropping to old school dial-up modem speeds almost, where for the rest of the month it's not really practical, not really usable.
So throttling is one term you need to know about, and that's when the carrier is cutting your speed down for the entire remainder of the billing month. There's another term that you're going to hear used, which is network management, or some carriers have gone to calling it priority data. And what that means is that your unlimited data plan on your smartphone or your tablet is unlimited. But after you use a certain amount of data, maybe it's 30 gigabytes a month, maybe it's 50 or 100. After you use that amount, they might say your speeds could be slowed down. Yeah. And what that means is, if you are in a congested market and the tower that you are connected to has a lot of people using data at once,
you have a lower priority all of a sudden.
And that means that if you were comparing head-to-head two smartphones, someone who had not reached their network management threshold and someone who had, you might see your speeds are slower than theirs because you have a lower priority because you have used more data so far this month. That is not throttling, and it usually only lasts like through the peak period of time. So maybe in the evenings when everyone is streaming Netflix might be the only time that you experience those slowdowns.
Yeah. So in a really congested area, network management being past that threshold can be very, very painful. But if you're in an uncongested area, you can still get incredible speed. So don't stress too much about those data limits if you're, away from the crowds.
And then another term that you need to pay attention to, especially if video streaming is important to you. So watching YouTube, Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime, any of those sources, is the video resolution that's included with your plan. You might see it as low as SD, which is going to be 480p or DVD quality. If you're watching on a small screen, that's probably just fine. And that uses a very little bit of data. You're getting like 0.3 gigabytes per hour that you can get with your data usage on that.
So you have to understand what your plan is doing behind the scenes, and does it have video speed limits? Because some of them, if you have a big screen or you like HD video and stuff, look for the plans that will have support HD, and other ones that might throttle you down and just to 480.
And then the third component of using cellular as your data source is
improving the signal.
And we probably all have seen lots about cellular boosters. This one's by WeBoost. This is their Drive Reach, which is made for mobile. They have a RV kit out now that has a tall antenna that hooks up to the roof of your RV, and then it has a interior antenna that connects to the other side that transmits that cellular signal inside of your RV. And these are originally meant for phone calls. So making phone calls, they're not especially well optimized for data or mobile internet. They can work in some situations.
Yeah. So what they say is that you'll get more bars, and you'll see the bars when you turn on the booster. You'll see more bars on your phone, but don't pay attention to bars. Bars are really meaningless. If you're concerned about internet performance, you want to actually run speed tests. You can go to speedtest.net. Run the speed test app and stuff like that, and you'll see a lot of places you go, turning on a booster, you'll get more bars, but your speeds will actually go down. The boosters are only appropriate in certain fringe areas, and they're very, very expensive. So
this goes for $500.
You have to decide, is that worth spending money? And we talk a lot of people out of buying boosters because there's cheaper and better ways to improve your signal, perhaps
for data. Now, if you are using smartphones as your primary way online, well, you're kind of stuck with boosters.
Soap dish in the window.
Well, yeah. Okay. Well, standing on your picnic table and holding it up works as well. But if you want to be able to use your smartphone inside of your RV and you have a weak signal, or if you're in a metal RV, so a van, bus, or an Airstream, signal is blocked by metal. So you might have no option other than using a booster to get a cell phone online. Boosters are also useful when you're very far from the tower because it's amplifying the signal. It's also very useful when upload capacity is needed. So if you are broadcasting video like we are doing right now and you have a weak signal, it's actually like putting a microphone on your voice and using a megaphone and making your voice louder to the tower. So it can have a substantial impact on upload performance. But for download, every cellular device on the market uses something called MIMO. That's MIMO. It means multiple in, multiple out. It's just like having two ears to hear the signal. So there's two antennas.
Or sometimes four.
Or more inside of every cellular device that is hearing from different sides. So my left ear and my right ear are technically picking up different sounds, and my brain is combining it to what I actually hear. And the same works with modems. So you look at a jetpack, it has two antenna ports on the back. Well, what you can do, you can get a antenna only device. So this little guy is called a Netgear MIMO antenna. You can get it on Amazon for like $40, but it has two antennas inside of it, two antenna leads.
Plug that into a little jetpack like this, and suddenly this little $40 antenna is outperforming a $500 booster in a lot of places. And so investing and focusing on antennas is such a great way to improve your performance and speed. Doesn't work with phones because phones don't have antenna ports, but for hotspots and for cellular routers, that becomes one of the great reasons to have them. Now, it's very important, though, when you're looking at hotspots, a lot of the cheaper mobile hotspots don't have antenna ports, and even some of the high-end ones don't have antenna ports.
This is the brand new 5G hotspot that just came out from Verizon and T-Mobile. It doesn't have antenna ports.
So antenna ports are one of the most important things you could have in a fringe area, and even just a simple basic antenna like that. So look for the options that let you take advantage of an antenna.
And most cellular routers, we talked about those earlier, they also have antenna ports. And they have a different style of connector, SMA usually, which is allows you to use larger cables, which means you can put antennas on your roof and get a stronger signal into the router itself.
Okay. Cellular.
Let's go ahead.
Excuse me. Now is the time for folks to start putting in their questions for you. So we're going to open up the chat on the YouTube page. And for those of you whose chat box does not open up, please refresh your screen. And you do that by going to the round arrow on your PC machine on the upper left, or if you're on a Mac or an Apple machine, the round arrow is in the bar where you put in your address. So look forward to your questions. And thank you guys for letting me interrupt you, and please continue.
Hey, that's cool. Looking forward to all your questions. Those are the fun stuff.
Sure. Now, we briefly talked on 5G. 5G is the emerging technology for cellular. So real briefly, it's not important yet.
Yeah, it is setting the stage for the next 10 years of cellular evolution, but 5G right now is basically just really good 4G, so don't rush out to buy 5G gear. There is 5G coverage. There'll be even 5G coverage out in rural areas and all sorts of remote areas, but it's not making a big difference yet. So don't worry about getting 5G gear just yet. We can explain a lot more about that later if you've got questions and stuff.
Right. But, a lot of cell phones are now coming out 5G capable. Don't avoid those. They're fine. They're not going to be.
There's not a bad thing to be more future-proof, but you won't see much advantage yet. It's paving the way for the next decade of stuff getting better.
So, but as far as data devices, when you're looking at mobile hotspot devices and routers, it's not yet important except for your exterior antennas. If you're installing an antenna on your roof, it is worthwhile going ahead and selecting a 5G antenna. Now let's talk about satellite internet from space, internet that you can get out where there is no cell signal, there is no Wi-Fi signal. This has been the utopia for RVers for decades, and it's how RVers have gotten online even before cellular was common.
Back 15 years ago, 20 years ago, there were big giant satellite dishes, and these are different kind of dishes, different gear than for satellite TV, and you could connect and get online anywhere in the country and even into Mexico and Alaska and all this stuff. But cellular got so much better, and those old satellites were basically very, very slowly improving that most of those companies went out of business. Hardly any of that stuff works anymore. And satellites kind of fallen by the wayside, but it's about to make a big comeback because a whole different kind of satellite networks are coming online. The low Earth orbit satellites that we could talk about these a lot, explaining the differences, but everybody's hearing about Starlink, and Elon Musk is going to bring cheap, fast internet to everyone and all this. And it is starting to happen. And we get a ton of questions about Starlink. We've done some great videos on it, but it is just now in early beta. And the focus is fixed rural residential right now. It is not mobile friendly. The current Starlink you get in the beta, you can't take it from place to place. If you leave your registered address, it will stop working. So
about 40 miles away.
Yes.
You have a little bit of mobility with it. They don't yet work while in motion. And they're kind of geo-locked right now to a specific area where they are authorized. Now, it is projected to be mobile friendly. That is the long-term
There's a lot of cool stuff coming.
But we are still at least a year or more off from it being an option for RVers to use as a part of their connection. The other downsides to satellite is you need a clear view of the sky,
which means not being in the shade.
So if you're in like a national forest with actual trees, you're going to have some difficulty finding that clear sky. This isn't like traditional long-term satellite. You just need a clear line of sky to the south, which is where the geostationary satellites are currently.
And you could actually, the old style satellites, you could aim through a little hole in the trees. The new low Earth orbit satellites are moving through the sky. And so as they pass overhead, your dish needs to track them continuously. And it means a lot. You can't have trees blocking your way or you'll have dropouts and stuff. So satellites, a lot of exciting stuff is happening. It is all changing in the next few years. It's fun to track, but you can't really consider it an option just yet.
Right. It definitely is going to be interesting in the years ahead, and we will be tracking it closely. So do follow up at the mobile internet.
Watch every launch.
In fact, there's one this afternoon, isn't there?
tomorrow.
Okay.
Monday.
We're actually in view of the launch pad, so well, of the launch area for right now.
Yes.
So there's a lot of information, a lot of stuff that you can go deeper on with this. This was just a very, very high level overview of the options out there. Do head on over to the Mobile Internet Resource Center. That's mobileinternetinfo.com. There's some links in the description to this video that go to our Getting Started guide, where we have brought together a whole bunch of content to go deeper on any of these topics. And if you are working remotely, we also have a Working Remotely Getting Started guide that's linked in there as well.
And also the plan picks is we just updated the guide to, because the one thing that's changes so often is like, what are the best plans to get a lot of data, and the carriers are changing them all the time, and there's a lot of little twisty ways to find things that are kind of semi-unofficial. So we just updated that guide as well.
Right. So I just put out a brand new video on the Mobile Internet Resource Center YouTube channel going over our current top picks for routers, for smartphones, and for tablets, because there's different types of plans for those. So Sue-Ann, you've got some questions for us. We're ready for them.
Yes, I sure do. So let's get started. Missy's Excellent Adventure asks, what is the best current data plan for each carrier?
So we just did a 20-minute video on that.
So let's just, I'm just going to a really
very quick recap.
Quick recap for smartphones on Verizon. Visible right now is the best option. It is an unlimited data plan for on-device usage on your smartphone. And then it also includes unlimited mobile hotspot use off of that smartphone.
It is a limited speed.
It's at 5 megabit per second speeds, and they're supposed to cap it at only connecting one device at a time, but a lot of iOS devices don't enforce that cap. It is as low as $25 per month.
So it is a really great bargain for unlimited data on Verizon. There's a few catches, so definitely read about our Visible article and stuff, but it is a great deal.
Right. For AT&T, if you go with Cricket Wireless, which is their prepaid owned subsidiary, so they use AT&T's towers, they are owned by AT&T. They have a 100 gigabyte plan for mobile hotspot devices. It is 5G compatible as well. It is 100 gigabytes of data a month of high speed for $90 per month. T-Mobile, they just released their 5G hotspot, but this plan is available on any T-Mobile compatible device. It is now 100 gigabytes of mobile hotspot use off of a data-only device, mobile hotspots and routers, for $50 per month. And then for Sprint, which was recently acquired by T-Mobile, of course.
But still has independent plans, yeah.
Right now, our favorite is going by joining a nonprofit. They have access to an unlimited plan. You pay up front for a device. We like the Calyx Institute. You pay $500 a year. It gets you a mobile hotspot device and an unlimited plan for 1 year on Sprint's network. If you are low income qualified, you can also go with PCs4People.com and or it might be .org. They actually offer an even lower price plan. I think it's $15 per month plus the cost of the hotspot, which is about $100. So those are our top picks. There are a lot of other options out there. Go follow up with the video, mobileinternetinfo.com/plan picks, where we cover all of the top data plan picks.
And keep them updated when they change, because they change a lot.
Excellent. Okay, Jenny. She asks, she says, satellite service sounds great. Which carrier is best overall in your opinion?
For satellite service?
Yes.
Well, so satellite right now, there's not a lot of really great affordable options that are currently available for nomads. We've got a guide at mobileinternetinfo.com/satellite.
There's only two current satellite providers, Hughes, and you have to go through a vendor that can authorize mobility. So you have to go with a business plan with them. So make sure you're working with a mobile authorized vendor. And the other one is RV Datasat. They're the ones that it's a $6,000 antenna that you have to put, a dish that you have to have installed on your roof of your RV. It takes up a whole lot of space. And their plans are pretty pricey and low speed. Those are the only two data options out there for mobile satellite right now. Starlink will, of course, be hopefully an option in a year or so.
Yeah, so Starlink is right now pricing it at just under $99 a month for their unlimited plans. But again, it's not mobile friendly yet. So look for Starlink in the future. It's changing all the time, but it's still very early days.
Okay, great. Okay, HOWA fan says, I don't use much internet outside of Starbucks. What is a good inexpensive plan to use? Money is tight.
So the visible plan we mentioned, you
Is
get
a
down
fab-
to $25 for that, and that's a phone plan, so you get your voice, text, and everything. And then Google Fi is also a pretty inexpensive plan that has limited data, but is a pretty good
Yeah,
option to go with.
Google Fi is a smartphone plan. It's Google's MVNO, mobile virtual network operator. They actually, all of their plans can connect you to T-Mobile, Sprint, and US Cellular. So you get the combined footprint of 3 carriers in one device. Their plan is $20 per month for voice and text, but then you pay $10 per gigabyte, but as you use it. So you can control your internet costs by minimizing your usage that way. And then, doing most of yours, continuing to use it at public Wi-Fi spots.
Okay, good. Jack in the Box Van asks, for the East Coast nomad, would you recommend 5G or Wi-Fi over the others?
5G or Wi-Fi?
So as we said, I wouldn't get too excited about 5G just yet. I certainly, most of the new plans, even like the visible plan, includes 5G if you have a 5G compatible phone, but I wouldn't necessarily rush out to upgrade just to get 5G. It'll come. Everybody will eventually have 5G. No need to rush for it. But cellular versus Wi-Fi, I guess on the East Coast, you'll find Wi-Fi in a lot of places, but it's hard to find and trust that you'll find good Wi-Fi in the places that you need it.
It really depends. It comes down to how important is internet to you. Do you need to get online? Do you want to go out deep into forests, or are you doing state parks? Are you driveway surfing with friends and family? Or are you staying in places where there is access to Wi-Fi? For a lot of us, we would say, yes, get both.
True. And yeah, having, and that's actually something we really didn't mention, was having multiple carriers. So like a lot of people think, should I get Verizon or AT&T? If you can, have like both on board, because you never know when, like, sometimes the cell towers go down for maintenance. And if you need to be connected, having that backup plan, even if it's a backup plan that might be cost you per gigabyte, like the Google Fi one, if the Verizon tower goes down and suddenly Verizon's completely offline where you are, having a backup reserve parachute is a great way to go. It's a great option to have.
Good point. Bill Berry says that my plan says unlimited, but I get throttled after 75 gigabytes. Is there a truly unlimited plan?
Okay, so this goes back to, you're not throttled at 75 gigabytes. It sounds like you are on the Verizon Get More postpaid plan based upon those terms. This, after 75 gigabytes, you're not throttled. You're just subject to network management, which we covered earlier in the video, which just means that you are now at a lower priority. If you are on a congested tower, there's a lot of people in that tower, you may feel it temporarily, but you're probably still going to get very usable speeds after that 75 gigabytes. As far as a plan that doesn't have those terms, no, they don't exist.
They're not really. No.
Fish, right?
Yeah, some people just have multiple plans. If they really need to have high priority data, they keep an extra plan in reserve that they make sure stays below the priority limits for their plan.
Right. Okay, Teresa S's question. How do we find out how much data we would need? As in, how do we go out, she wants to know how to figure out how much data she's going to need.
So, if you're currently on a cable or a DSL connection at home, a lot of the internet service providers, they may or may not give you that information, how much data you're using right now. So you might want to install some sort of meter on your computer or at your router level to try to monitor it. But you also look at the things you need to do throughout the day. Are you streaming video, you doing Zoom calls, or you just doing surfing? You can get some benchmarks for how much data you use for each of those, how much per hour those things use. But one way that we recommend people do is, like, if you currently have a smartphone that has some personal mobile hotspot use on it, is just work off of your personal mobile hotspot for a full day of your normal usage. And that'll give you kind of like a daily, it's like, oh, I used only 1.2 gigabytes a day. Well, you can extrapolate that out for a month that, you know, a 30 gigabytes might be all I need. But if you're finding you need 5 gigabytes a day, well, now you're looking at a heck of a lot more data.
And then you can start figuring out what are the things you can do to adjust your usage. Like, you know, maybe I can dial video back to a lower resolution and not stream in high resolution. Or maybe I watch my video on a tablet instead of my laptop so that I'm not using that data plan and stuff like that. So once you know how much data you're using, you can start to make adjustments.
Good idea. Okay. Some of these you've answered, but I'm going to go ahead and ask this in case I didn't hear your answer. Cat and Two Dogs asked, do I need a hotspot, Wi-Fi router, or antenna to get reliable internet on the road?
So again, it's what is your definition of reliable? Where are you traveling, and what are your mobile internet needs? A lot of our premium members at the Mobile Internet Resource Center are working remotely, or they consider internet to be essential to their travels.
Kids going through mobile school where they have to be online at a certain time every day for video chat. So they don't have a lot of flexibility. But for a lot of other people, reliable just means they need to be able to get their email once a day and stuff like that. So the differences in demand of data needs is pretty significant.
So, you know, for a lot of us, we travel with data plans on all 4 cellular carriers, because there have been places where Sprint has been best, or maybe they've been the least congested, or Verizon is best. We personally rarely use public Wi-Fi hotspots. When we get to a campground, we don't like RV parks.
That have Wi-Fi,
we like state parks, Army Corps of Engineer parks, or being out boondocking where there's not access to Wi-Fi anyway. And because we've optimized on cellular, and we have an antenna, a good antenna on our roof, and we also do carry a booster for those few times where it makes sense, we pretty much can rely on cellular. We do have Wi-Fi gear on board because we have to test it as part of our job in providing equipment. But if I was buying it for myself, I wouldn't. But that's not my style of travel. We're not stopping at and trying to use McDonald's and public Wi-Fi sources, because we have built out our cellular setup so much. But that everyone's needs are very different.
Very good. Sandy M asks, I like to boondock in very isolated places. Is satellite the best way to ensure I get internet?
Well, satellite is definitely the one guaranteed way, but you would be amazed how good cellular coverage has gotten in a lot of remote, crazy boondocking spots. You know, and sometimes we've discovered that those spots have some of the best possible speeds because there's nobody else on the tower. You've got some like really remote rural tower, and you're the only one on it, and you get insanely good speeds, but you have to do your homework in advance to know, is the spot you're going to be a 0 coverage area, or is it going to be good? And there are things you can do, like, you know, like a directional antenna that you put up on a mast and aim and stuff like that can really help you stay connected in remote boondocky areas sometimes. But there's a lot of things to have in your bag of tricks. What works in one location it might not work in another, and what carrier works in one location might not work in another.
It depends on where those isolated locations are as well. I mean, if you're out in a big open area where you've got a clear view of the sky, well, then satellite can work great there. But if you're going into a deep forest with lots of trees around, well, satellite becomes kind of not very usable.
It becomes trickier, yeah.
Yeah. So it really depends upon where you're going. Right now, unless you are only going places, or you're mostly only going places where there is not any cellular coverage, we don't recommend satellite for most, not until Starlink comes out. It's a huge investment in equipment. You're talking at least $1,500 to $2,000 in equipment, plus a data plan that's going to have a probably 18 to 24 month contract associated with it. So you're locked in long term on it, and it's a lot of setup at each location. So it's an edge case right now.
But the one thing, the satellite option that some people might want to consider, if you are going into really boondocky places where there's no connection, having something like this is a Garmin InReach communicator. This does satellite internet, but it's incredibly super slow speed. So it's basically limited to text messaging and checking the weather. But you can get something like this, and it also will leave little automatic tracks on a map so people can track you. So it's for safety purposes, being able to get a message out, I need help, or something like that. subscribing to something like a satellite communication service like this. These are handheld, portable, battery powered, very, very slow. You can't open a web page. You can't do any sort of normal web stuff. It's basically text messaging, but it will work anywhere on the planet and can keep you safe if you're really going to those fringe places.
You talked about the equipment that's needed for the current satellite programs. Do you know what kind of equipment will be needed for the Starlink?
So they've got the beta equipment out now that's basically really optimized for stationary setups. We imagine that they're going to have different equipment for mobile.
But it's a dish about, it's like a pizza on a stick or a UFO on a stick. It's, you know, a little dish. It doesn't have to be manually aimed. It auto aims. You just plug it in and it goes. And it's kind of using military grade technology that a couple of years ago would have cost $20,000 for this antenna. They're able to sell it for $500 right now. And hopefully over time we'll be able to bring that down even further. But again, Starlink is still in early beta period. So they'll be revising what all of this is over the next year, probably quite a lot. It's evolving very, very rapidly, but it's still too early to jump on.
Okay, thank you. Tommy Traveler asks, what is the best way to protect my data on a public Wi-Fi?
Okay,
so on public Wi-Fi, first of all, use websites that have HTTPS in the front of it. Look for that S. That means it is an encrypted connection. That means when people can see if they're on your local area network, if they're using the same network as you, they can see that you're going to, let's say, Bank of America or Cheap RV Livings forums. But they can't see what's happening after you get to that website.
Yes.
If you need more encryption than that, like if you're going to a banking site,
the bank has its own, they have very strong security. The important thing with like doing any sort of finances and stuff on public Wi-Fi is never use the same password in two places, because the people who are snooping on the public networks can see that you went to you went to Bank of America, then you went to a low security site, some online forum. If you use the same password to log into that online forum, they might be able to snoop on that. And then they'll just guess that, hey, you went to this bank, maybe you use that same password. The automatic software will try it and guess. So if you never reuse passwords, you're pretty safe on public Wi-Fi. And if you have concerns, you can subscribe to any number of VPN services that will completely encrypt your connection over the public Wi-Fi network, and for a cost of $5 to $20 a month. But
shop your VPNs carefully, because
some of the VPNs aren't very trustworthy.
You're basically then routing all of your traffic through someone else's server that they can see, that person who owns it. So you want a trusted source, because
some of the VPNs are very shady.
Yeah, because remember, people who are doing nefarious things on the web are also using those VPNs to do those nefarious things, like hacking into sites. So those VPNs that are known to be used for bad things, a lot of sites blocked. And also VPNs are often used to mask data where it's coming from. So like to watch a live sports feed, they may block out watching of a sports game in certain locations. Well, people might use a VPN to get around that location block. Well, so a lot of video services also
block VPNs.
If you're coming in from a VPN, they're not going to show you their stuff because they can't do their geo-locking specifications.
So there's in other words, that VPNs and security is a whole really deep topic, and you can go as deep down that well as you want to be and as concerned as you are about things. But for most people doing most things, if you have your computers and your devices that you're connected with up to date and running the latest soft OS updates and patches, and you don't reuse passwords, you're pretty safe on public networks.
Okay, thank you. Yellow Van Man. My speed drops from 10 to 3 from the front of my van to the back.
Metal walls.
Is there a way to keep it consistent?
So it depends on what device you're using, but I would say if you're getting good speeds in the front of the van, if you're talking like maybe on your smartphone, it's probably because you're surrounded by near the windshield with glass. As you move to the back of your van, you probably have less glass, more metal around you, which blocks signal. So keep your device up where it's next to a window as opposed to blocked by the metal of your van. If that's not enough, then you need to have an antenna on your roof. And that if it's a smartphone, you're unfortunately restricted to using a cellular booster for that. If you're using a mobile hotspot device or a router, you can go with an antenna only solution.
Yeah, one of the cheap options that can work wonders is just like a $5 little plastic suction cup, so soap dish and putting that in a window and put your cell device, whether it's a phone or a hotspot, in a window, hopefully not in the sun so it doesn't get too hot and roast, but just putting your device in a window, and it has a much better signal than if it's sitting on a desk or in your pocket or in a chair or something like that. So when you're parked someplace, just find a place to mount your phone up there, and it'll probably have great internet.
Okay. What is the antenna? This is from Lisa Parker. What is the antenna called for the hotspot, please?
So you're probably talking about this one. It's called the Netgear MIMO. So MIMO. When we go to monitoring the chat room, I'll actually put a link in the chat room, but we have a full review of it at mobileinternetinfo.com/netgear-MIMO. And you can find it on Amazon. This is what it looks like. It's
normally a suction cups there that stick to the window.
The suction cups to a window, and it is directional. So you do need to, I would recommend trying this in each window of your RV because you want this facing generally towards the cellular towers that you're using. So do a speed test with each location that you can successfully mount this to see where it's best at. And keep aware that if you've got sun coming down on your mobile hotspot device, that will heat it up and can decrease your performance. So also keep that in mind. You don't want this sitting in a window.
But put that in the shade. But the window, the suction cup that in a window, and you'd be amazed at what it can do for you sometimes.
Sire Roland. Hi. How do you connect the cellular router to cell internet? Is this only available depending on the carrier? I looked up T-Mobile and cellular router is not in their devices. Thanks.
Right.
So that's just it's like a category of device.
So remember, with the carriers, they're going to sell you a mobile hotspot device, which is the companies make these for them. These usually have a battery in them, and they have the modem inside and create the Wi-Fi network from there. If you want to go up the next step, which is cellular embedded routers, they are made by companies like PepWave, MoFi, Cradlepoint, and other companies out there. These are not sold directly by the carriers. You would buy these independently, and then you would buy a data plan that you would then, so you see
there are the SIM slots in the back here.
Oh, sorry, wrong side. There's SIM card slots that go in there. So you would just put your SIM card for the data plan that you've acquired in there to get it connected to the internet.
So it's a more advanced topic. You've got to know a little bit about how things all go together and how to set it up yourself, but not super unapproachable. And there's like companies like Mobile Must Have that kind of sell bundles of here's a router and antenna, and they can even help you with data plans and stuff that sell kind of like packages and stuff like that.
Very good. Miami Sammy says, I followed your advice on T-Mobile for 100 gigabytes for $50. This gives me a third layer of connectivity with my grandfathered unlimited AT&T plan on my iPhone and unlimited Verizon with 30 gigabytes cap for my Winegard on my RV. Thanks.
Yay.
Cool. We got a well-connected person here.
Yeah, so that new T-Mobile plan that just came out about a month ago, and previously T-Mobile didn't offer a great data-only plan. So that's great to see them offering this $50 per month 100 gigabyte plan. 100 gigabytes not anything close to unlimited, but there's a heck of a lot that you can do for 100 within 100 gigabytes of data. And T-Mobile's network has been expanding very rapidly over the last few years. And it's very important that when you're shopping for the devices that you use that plan with, make sure it supports band 71. That is where they have been deploying their long range coverage. Right. If you go with a device that doesn't support band 71, you're pretty much going to be restricted to urban areas. Right.
So yeah, that's the important thing. We see this a lot of times is because T-Mobile had such a bad reputation, Sprint even worse for coverage compared to Verizon and AT&T. And in the process of catching up, T-Mobile's deployed spectrum on new frequency bands that older devices cannot connect to. So older T-Mobile devices aren't getting the new T-Mobile coverage in particular. So definitely on all carriers, it matters to keep your devices fairly up to date, but T-Mobile in particular, only the last basically year and a half, 2 years has band 71 been kind of included in everything. So if you have older devices than that, you're missing out on T-Mobile.
Okay, very good. Survive Van Life. You're obviously well connected. How do you connect with van lifers digitally? What apps, websites do you use most?
And because we've had a social media presence since 2006, we typically meet people because they recognize us. We did help found our village back in 2014. We helped launch that, so we're
The
involved
social
with that.
network for
The
RVers.
social network for RVers is completely free.
And then the Escapers is we also helped found the Escapers, which is the younger working on the road branch of the Escapees, and that is a community that is very near and dear to our heart. And this time last year, we were boondocking in the desert with a bunch of Escapers and having the most incredible time.
Very cool. Yeah, two great organizations there. James, do you have a VPN that you recommend? I use one through BullGuard.
We don't personally use
Speedify,
VPNs.
I guess.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah. So there's one particular VPN that is called Speedify that actually does something kind of cool. So on your phone, if you've got both Wi-Fi and cellular in range of your phone, the Speedify acts as a VPN, but it also combines the Wi-Fi and cellular and will use both connections simultaneously. So if one drops, the other one doesn't. So that's kind of the only VPN that I keep active is Speedify, and it's a company that I trust. But
I personally find VPNs very annoying to use in our travels. We do a lot of ordering delivery sort of stuff, and you go to like Uber Eats or you're going to schedule an Uber, and it thinks like, you know, we're currently in Florida. It says, oh, you're in Dallas. Let me bring up the Dallas places you can order from. Yeah. It's like, I'm not in Dallas. I'm in Florida. I want to order pizza here.
Yes. So. VPNs totally screw up all sorts of anything that tries to figure out your location because you're appearing on the network someplace else. Yeah. So yeah, VPNs are something we only use in rare occasions.
Thank you. Suzanne says unlimited tablet plans sound great. Mm-hmm. Can you recommend a few to research? Thank you.
Yeah. So the top data plan picks guide and video that we mentioned earlier, which we just updated on the Mobile Internet Resource Center video channel. We went over some of the options, but if you have a direct plan with any of the carriers on postpaid, you can add one on for just $20 per month. AT&T, if you call and find a rep who knows how to find this plan, you can get one on its own as a standalone for $20 per month without needing a smartphone line. And Sprint also offers that for $25 per month as a standalone option. T-Mobile and Verizon, you can get them standalone, but they're going to be $65 to $90 per month when not added onto a smartphone line.
Okay, thank you. I think we have time for another one. Michelle Reinmiller. I added Google Fi SIM card as backup, but I haven't used. I don't recall you guys talking about Fi as an option. What are your thoughts on Google Fi? Thanks for the great info.
Yeah, so we did actually cover Google Fi. Someone else asked about it earlier. It auto uses T-Mobile, Sprint, and US Cellular. It's $20 per month for their Flex plan, and then you pay by the gigabyte at $10 per gigabyte. Once you pay for 6 gigabytes of data, they give you free. They cap it. You no longer get billed. But once you reach 15 gigabytes, so basically you get 6 to 15 gigabytes free included. Once you reach 15, you are hard throttled for the rest of the month. Then you have an unlimited plan, but that one is hard throttled after 22 gigabytes of usage. So for high data needs, we don't recommend it, but as a backup option, it's a great flexible option.
And it's got good international travel features too, so it's useful for that.
Very good. Thanks so much, you guys. And thank you everyone for being here. Be sure, everyone, we've heard them reference their website and their YouTube channel. Those links are down below in the description. Please go and find them there and check it out. It sounds like these are topics that you can do deep dive in.
Definitely. Oh, lots of them. We have been covering this since 2014, so we have a lot of content, a lot of it offered for free, and thanks to our premium members. We're all community funded, so we don't take sponsorships, we don't do advertising, we're not selling anything. So our premium members make this all possible, and for that they get additional resources like we do Q&A webinars with them once a month. We have a Q&A forum where we'll help guide them through selecting their right setup, and they get alerts when stuff comes out as well.
Get this plan now before it goes away. Jump on it, because there are some great grandfather plans that have come and gone, and if you jump on them, you've got them for like some of you have. It's amazing deals.
Yes. Very cool. Okay. Thank you, thank you, thank you.